Today might be one of, if not the realest episode I've ever recorded. We all have those songs that we go to when we need some relatability, hope, or a pick-me-up. And at this stage in my life, there are some lyrics that are hitting harder than they once did. This line definitely hits harder nowadays too, when I'm having these moments like this. It's been very easy for me to go throughout my life watching others succeed and not have a place in the game myself. Comparison is truly the thief of joy. But I do resonate with that pressure. Again, like I said, I'm getting closer to 30, and sometimes I'm living these days and it feels like my life won't change. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. They play my kind of basketball. And a lot of layers to this song if you're really paying attention. Here's a huge shout out to you for being hip to the games. Welcome to another episode of Hip to the Games. Whether you are new to the H2DG family or a day one supporter, I appreciate you listening or watching today's show. All praise to the creative director, Jesus Christ, as it's always a blessing to get in front of this microphone and share what he's put in my heart with you. And a special shout out to the home team, 19 Media Group, for the opportunity to represent a network filled with passionate, independent podcasters. If you consider yourself hip to the games, I would really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to give the show an honest rating and review on audio platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm really trying to get those up so we can continue to grow the H2DG family. But in the meantime, today might be one of, if not the realest episode I've ever recorded. I have very limited notes compared to what I typically script for the show. In fact, I'll even go as far as letting you behind the curtain and saying that starting the previous episode and this episode, I've been challenging myself to not rely as much on my notes because I always had this notion that I could write it better than I could say it. So I always gave the perfect, quote unquote, perfect version on my notes. And because I have a radio background, I know how to deliver that in a way that makes it sound like I'm not reading notes sometimes, right? And it takes me back to college. I remember one of my professors even told me when I was taking speech classes and whatnot, she was telling me like, Desmond, I think I can see that in your work sometimes, that you're so used to the radio student. You're so used to writing things down and having a script that it can be a little hard for you to speak off the top of the dome. And so I've been trying to get back to that and strengthen that muscle, like they say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's something, again, I graduated college in 2021 and even in 2025, I'm still like, okay, I need to work on strengthening that muscle. And so I kind of want to do that today and start doing that more often on the show. Again, just for authenticity purposes and whatnot. So, this isn't going to be some dressed up episode how I usually do. I'm really just trying to speak from the heart because you almost didn't get an episode today. I'll be 100% honest. If you're a regular listener, the one thing I always told myself growing up is that if I had any kind of platform on any kind of level, I want to show people the real journey. Because, for example, right, I look at somebody like LeBron James, who I was the biggest fan of LeBron James from like 2007 to 2010. Back then, his life was my dream, right? NBA superstar, arguably the best player in the league, had everything, the money, the fame, the success, from the outside, everything looked great. But now at 27 years old, like I look at him and now, like, instead of back then being like, oh, LeBron, what's it like to be in the NBA? What's it like to play against Kobe Bryant? What's it like all these things? What's it like to be an all-star? Now my questions would be way different. Like, I want to know what LeBron James' hard days are like. I feel like nobody asks him that question in media, right? As successful as he is and as much as he's committed to striving for greatness, does he have days where he just wants to stay at the crib with Savannah and Zuri? right? Does he ever feel like skipping the gym? As swole as he is, does he ever feel like skipping the gym? Does he ever get exhausted from that same chase for greatness? Or is he just that one of one? Is he that superhuman? And I ask those questions because I've been in that boat a lot, especially recently. Like some might call it burnout, but for me, I think it's been a lot of emotional burnout. Like I'm not tired from the work itself. I'm tired of the emotions behind the work. I'm tired of checking all the boxes, right? Bring structure to the show, stay in your niche, record the show, edit the show, make it look great because it's got to be on YouTube too. Promote the show. Don't stop posting. Post at this time. Evaluate your numbers. If it's not this many numbers, you're doing it wrong. You need to fix it. Post on the socials, rinse and repeat. Right? And then only to have a hopeless viewpoint of the results the experts, quote unquote, say I'm due to have. Right? They say if I do all those things, I'm pretty much putting myself in a better position for success. But what if it feels like I've been doing those things and it's not really manifesting? Like I'm tired of finding the drive to believe that tomorrow is the day everything changes, only for it to end up being a loop of the previous day. And oftentimes I've been in that trap where rest feels detrimental. Like if I take a second off, all the progress I've gained the past 4 years will be lost. I know that's not right, but that's me being 100. But still, I keep showing up. And after all, like I try to keep big picture in mind always, right? Like I'm not homeless. I'm not a single parent. Like I'm not looking genocide in the face, right? If we're looking at the state of the world, man, like I'm just an aspiring podcaster. Like, and even that, I don't even know if that's a title that I'm truly pursuing, right? Is that something I even desire anymore? So most days you see me, I come up here, I keep it G, and honestly speaking, I mask it. I mask it and I choose to show up because at the end of the day, the work has to be done. And my struggle ain't really that dire in comparison, right? But I say all that to say, God is funny because just when I was ready to take an extra week or an extra 2 weeks or an extra 3 weeks off, he dropped the idea that you're hearing today on my spirit. As a hip hop head, we all have those songs that we go to when we need some relatability, hope, or a pick me up. And at this stage in my life, there are some lyrics that are hitting harder than they once did. Right? Some of these songs that you'll hear me pull from were either songs from literally when I was a kid, like single digits, or songs where I was, in my teenage years or like approaching, my preteen years. Songs that, were inspiring back then, but like are truly relatable now as an adult. And I wanted to share with those with you today. I kept it light today, as I'm sure I have plenty to say on all of these topics. But I got lyrics from 4 different songs that I pulled from that I'm going to share. And I would love for you to also comment and share with me some lines of your own, so we can pick each other up with the music we love best. That's like big picture goal for me here. I really try to keep it together and I try to maintain my professionalism. But as much as I like to give my best on my show, I'm realizing as I get older that sometimes my best looks like this, like the moments where I'm just Des, not Desmond Powell, the podcaster, Desmond Powell, the media personality. Sometimes I just got to give y'all Des, and I feel like I haven't always done the best job of that. So today, again, I would like all that to change. So these first 2 songs that I'm going to share, just getting right into it, are ones that I posted on my Instagram story before. So if you follow me on there, these are going to be familiar to you. And the first lyric that comes to mind is from the great Nipsey Hussle, who asked the very question I find myself asking every day. On his album Victory Lap, in dedication, featuring Kendrick Lamar, he raps this: how long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meet preparation? And that really resonates with me because the thing about Nipsey is that, like, I'll be honest, like, I wasn't fully hip to Nipsey's work and whatnot. I was aware of him being one of the better artists of the West Coast. I was aware of him having a great fan base, a loyal fan base, but again, unfortunately, once he passed, like this song became one of those songs that I was playing like every day. And again, at that time, I'm trying to think, Victory Lab came out, I want to say what, 2017, 2018. So Yeah, I was still in college. So again, it was like I'm preparing for like the last 2 years of my college career. So the lyrics were hitting me back then, but especially now that I have like my own endeavor and whatnot, this is like exactly how I feel. And first off, I want to give like Nipsey his credit for how his music resonates with so many people, because what I love about Nipsey's rap style is that Nip was not always punchline. Again, a lot of West Coast artists, you realize their bars are game, right? You hear E40 say that a lot. You hear Too Short say that a lot. Their bars are the game. They're not here for punchlines and lyrical miracle, spiritual individual, like that type of stuff. They're not here for the double entendres all the time. They just want to tell you their life story and make it relatable and throw some West Coast slang in there, and then and they good. And I think that's why Nipsey's music resonates with so many people, because it was authentic, it was inspiring, and it was relatable. So again, it's simple lines like this: how long should I stay dedicated? How long to opportunity be preparation? And the quote that I live by from Nipsey is when he was on the radio. It might have been Breakfast Club or somewhere, where they asked him, like, honestly, I don't even remember what they asked him, but he was saying like he credited his success to him not giving up. He says like, I just didn't quit. That's what I got to give it to. I didn't quit. When everybody else wanted to quit, I didn't quit. And that's something that I lived by, because and ever since I was a teenager, I just always told myself like, I can't throw in the towel. Like right back then, it was my hoop dreams, which again didn't at all pan out how I thought they would. Right. And again, I've said this in my first episode ever. Like, it was my fault, my lack of work ethic. But back then, I always said like, I can't give up on this dream, because I have to find out if I make it. I'd rather find out that I didn't make it than quit and know that I never made it. And so this line definitely hits harder nowadays too, when I'm having these moments like this, because there's this struggle of, I think, chasing success, and more specifically in an environment, in a podcast environment that is pretty oversaturated. And it's unfortunate, because like, even for me, right, I started my like, the birth of Hip to the Games was like, the seed was planted in 2018, around there. Like, I would always want to tell people like, don't get it twisted. Like, I know a lot of people, when everybody was stuck in the house in 2020 and everybody decided to make a podcast, like that became the thing to do. But like, understand the root of it, right? Like, a lot of these people had radio shows, or a lot of these people were sports personalities or media personalities, right? And they couldn't go to their networks. But like, their production companies, they acted fast and everything, and they're like, hey, you get you a microphone, as long as you got a laptop, you can still do your show. So a lot of that was happening. And then for me, right, I like, nobody was there in 2018, before the popularity of podcasts really took off, when I was sitting in my radio class, and the first few weeks of radio, we're learning all the basics. And this is what audio production is. These are all the fields that you can go into at radio. You don't even have to be an on-air personality. You can be an engineer. You can be on the business side of things. You can be the music director. You can, just focus on picking what's going to be played on the radio, and reaching out to record labels and reaching out to artists and things of that nature. There was so much, and that was really cool for me to see. But the minute my professor said, yeah, there's this thing called podcasting, you can do it by yourself. Like, it's it can be an individual endeavor. It can be all up to you, your own creative control, all those things. And obviously, as if you know me, like, my mom always said growing up, like, Des, I can always picture you working for yourself. Not that I was like defiant and I didn't want to listen to anybody, but she always saw how much I valued control, like creative control, and honestly, to a fault, right? One of my many issues is my desire for control. But I think of that, and so the light bulb came on instantly. Like, oh no, like that's what I'm gonna do. Like, okay, I'm gonna get my degree. I'm gonna finish this out. I'm gonna do my radio stuff, and I'm gonna build however way I can build there. But I think that right there is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think, again, a shout out to my sister. She always put that in me, like, you're gonna be podcasting one day. Like, you're gonna be podcasting. Like, I'm gonna need you to start that podcast. She's always been my biggest cheerleader and my biggest challenger. Like, I love her to death for it. But And so eventually, right, 2019 comes, 2020 comes. I'm finishing my college career. Obviously, I have to take a fifth year, 2021. So, like, Hip to the Game started February 2021 because that previous December, I had done the work to be like, oh, like, this is my lane. Like, I can talk about the two things that I can talk about the thing that I've always loved and the thing that I've grown to love, right, which is basketball and hip hop. And I felt like I had something to say. I felt like I had I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, like I felt like I had something to say. I felt like there was, for some reason, I felt like my voice as a kid from, Joliet, Illinois, I felt like my voice mattered. I felt like I had something to say. I had something to contribute with these respective cultures. And, it was cool. It's still cool. But again, now we're in a place where like I've been struggling with like, does my voice even matter anymore? Right? I look at people on TikTok every day who don't even have an established podcast, but they got thousands of followers. They were able to build thousands of followers just off talking hip hop in their pajamas, right? Like, and they're well spoken. They articulate themselves. They're well researched, and I envy that, right? Because I've always been a simple dude, and I know I'm talking about hip hop now, but like even in the basketball side of things, what I've always said, one of the many inspirations of my basketball life was Kobe Bryant. And at such a small scale, one reason why that was is because I loved how simple he was. Like I felt like me and him were like, I saw myself in some ways because he was just simple. Anytime like kids would ask him like, oh, Kobe, how do I get better at this? Like I want to do my fadeaway like yours, or I want to dribble like you. And he would say, if you want to get better at a fadeaway, you practice the fadeaway. You just lab. It's just you and the basketball. You fade this way, you fade that way, you fade back. Maybe get a friend if you're playing with a friend. Lucky for me, I was blessed to have my brother. So a lot of times I let, hey Vaughn, come guard me in the post. I'm trying to work on my footwork. Like just I drilled those things. It wasn't like I was doing anything crazy. I wasn't doing anything with a tennis ball. I wasn't, I had no resistance bands around my ankles, like nothing like that. And I always felt like that's how it was with me. Like I just I call things how I see it, how I hear it in the hip hop side. And I struggle with that though. Even to this day, I struggle with that because I look at people and I'm like, you know, they're a little more well spoken than I. They're a little more experienced than I. I've always said I'm still climbing the hip hop tree. I don't know everybody's upbringing. I'm not one of those people that has the mass collection of vinyls and I can tell you everybody's upbringing and their first album, first mixtape, how they got to be like, what group they were on the side that helped put them on. Like I don't have that. I don't have that, but I do got this, right? I do know how to be authentic. I do know how to be relatable. I do understand what this hip hop thing is really about. And to me, I think the game needs more of that. So I contributed that, right? Same thing with basketball. I felt like in a world where everybody wants to be Stephen A. Smith, it's not cool to be positive. It's not cool to be positive. Like I think I've been on the side of that with Hip to the Game sometimes where it's not cool to be positive. Like, let's be real. Positivity doesn't get clicks. It just doesn't. It doesn't because it's cute, right? Like, oh, I appreciate what you said about this person, but obviously the person that's going to challenge them or critique them is going to get more clicks because they saying how they really feel, whether they're right or wrong. They're loud about it, and then it's going to get attraction, right? So again, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but like I struggle with all that. Like, now the athletes, right? Athletes are dropping podcasts nonstop now. So now it's like, again, my voice probably doesn't matter as much because now the athletes are able to control their narratives. You don't even have to be somebody like me where like I can in a dream scenario, interview a Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant got his own podcast. He can do his own interview. He can interview himself, So it's like, why should he come on Hip to the Games if he got his own platform? Right. So again, I think a lot of my peers and definitely myself were struggling with that. How though, and I'm talking, like I say, I'm talking those of us who are genuinely about this podcast life, not those of us who just woke up and decided to do one and just for giggles. Like those of us who actually put work and thought and research, and we are our production team. This is the production team. You're looking at them. Like I'm talking about those people, right? And then when I think about this lyric from Nipsey too, like it's not only trying to find, my lane and keep going in this podcast game, but even in my life, like on the side, like I'm still trying to find like a genuine career where I can use my degree. And you're looking at the state of the job market, and they're talking about all these kids in there who are just graduating, and I'm sitting here like, well, shoot, you guys are struggling at 21. I've been struggling the last 4 or 5 years. So it's like almost like welcome to the club. Like I'm struggling too. And I'm doing what everything, right, like that generate, like they call it Generation Z, like me, like, or like what they say from like 97 to like maybe 2001, like the generation Zillennial, right, where we're like half millennial, half Gen Z. Like I fully relate to that, because it's just we did everything that the OGs told us to do, and now we're like desolate. Like everything is just going downhill. And I'm putting my hands to work, right? Like even when I graduated college, I wasn't tripping that I didn't find a job out the gate, because I had this. I'm like, yo, I'm doing something. Like this is great. But after a while, you start doing that, and it's like I'm putting in my dedication, right? When is my opportunity going to come, right? And the biggest question I've been asking myself, like, when will the work be worth it? Like the thing I've been asking myself is, do I have 6 to 10 more years of this feeling, right? Like, okay, I'm approaching. So what? I'm on year 4 of podcasting, right? They say it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. That means I got 6 more years left. But for some people, it's even longer. I'm a little scared. I don't know if I have more years left to give. Like something I talk to Devon about all the time is like, life is still gonna move. Like I still have other dreams that I want to accomplish. I still want to be, I grow as an adult and things of that nature, right? Like I'm getting closer to 30. There's a lot more things you tend to think about, right? And it's like, I still want to do those things. I can't be the struggling podcaster forever. Like something more on this later, but something's got to shake. That's all I've been saying lately. So yeah, how long should I stay dedicated? How long to opportunity meet preparation? That's just been hitting too close to home. I even made it my lock screen. Like, so every day I wake up, because that's just all I know. It may not be the most positive thing to wake up to, but it's just like, that's all that's on my mind. That is exactly how I feel right now. Like, how long should I stay dedicated? How much do I got in me? Because I'm somebody that puts so much. I put every inch into this my stuff. Like, I've always been that dude. I've always been that kind of guy. Like, I just, it's funny. Like, I'll joke with my sister sometimes about stuff like that. Like, I'm somebody, I never needed a drug. I never needed a liquid confidence. Like, I live off the natural. Like, God gave me this natural, like, energy. You know what I mean? Like I feed off that. And when you're putting all that into an endeavor like this, and it's not growing how you thought it would, and all of those things, it can be really draining. It can be hard. So yeah, that's all I've been sitting with. But very similarly, the next song comes from J. Cole, right? And who I've always said his biggest strength as an artist is his relatability. That is his superpower. And especially the range of his relatability. He can spit something that only the person in the corner of the room can relate to, but he can also spit a line that everybody can relate to. And what I always say too, like if you grew up as a teenager, like anytime, I would say teenager slash young adult, anytime from like 2010 to like 2016, like notice, like J. Cole is so different to how easy it could have been for me to just pick all J. Cole songs. Like that dude is incredible. But I picked in Sideline Story, I actually want to highlight the first 3 lines of the song, and then eventually the last lines of the chorus. So I some separate parts here, but these lyrics have been hitting close to home as well. And he kind of details the thoughts of being an underdog, but personally I also kind of found familiarity with it, with the lyrics, due to my lifetime struggle of self-sabotage. So a few different topics here. He starts the song saying this: I put my heart and soul in this game. I'm feeling drained, unappreciated, unalleviated, tired of coming up short, bump abbreviated. Right? So for me, it's what I was just saying, right? I put my heart and soul in this game. I'm feeling drained. Like it's like the input output kind of thing, right? Like when you put in so much and feel like the outcome ain't as much as what you're putting in, that's going to leave you feeling drained. And maybe it's an ego thing with me, right? Like I can be humble enough to say that. Like it could be an ego thing with me. Maybe I feel like I'm putting in the work that I'm not really putting in, right? But it gets like that sometimes, you know? It's that struggle of giving your all and feeling like it's still not enough. You know, something I think about often is like there are literally times where I might be preparing episode notes, or it's like midnight, 1 a.m, and I'm making the thumbnail, or like I'm literally finishing editing the video in Adobe, and like I get that realization, like, dude, you do realize like you've been working like all day today, and it still might not pop off the way you want to. Like, are you ready for that? And like it's like my body like goes into that mode of realization where it's like, dang, you right. Like I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna hit upload. This content going out. I'm gonna make this the best that it can possibly be. But oh shoot, you right. Like it's not guaranteed, right? And I think again, being 27 now, like that's the reality of hard work, right? Growing up, countless times as a kid, as a preteen, I heard, you know, hard work gets you in. Work hard, do your best. Da 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 da. But now it's like sometimes you see the reality of hard work not paying off. Like, you know, some people call it luck, but you got to have a little God Disney magic right there. Like God's favor shows up a lot for people. You know, it ain't just hard work, cuz I'll be the first to tell you there's been times where I feel like I've really been putting in the grind and I'm like, "Oh shoot, it's not showing in the numbers. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I put my heart and soul in this game. I'm feeling drained, tired of coming up short, you know, and that's the thing too, right? It made me think of this, like something I've struggled with all my life too is like the feeling of being like I'm not enough, right? So it's kind of like this tie in with chasing validation, right? Seeming like I was in the category of being not the worst, but not the best. And I think I've struggled with that because it's like that's not really affirming in a world that tends to reward the best of the best, right? And I've noticed throughout my life how I've experienced that, right? Like so when I was coming up playing ball, it was like again, it was the kids that was super talented, you know, oh, he gonna be tall, you know, whoop de woo. Uh, you know, it's you got to work a little harder when you just the average size kid, not the fastest, not the best shooter in the gym, you know, not the most standout body type, like all those things. I could say the same thing for podcasting, right? Like I always said, I always knew I was never the best speaker. That's something that I've always been a little insecure about. Like I've never been top tier, you know, personality. And I think even this, like when I think of again the how the genesis of Hip to the Games came to be, right? Like when I found out that I even wanted to do podcasting, again, I knew it was something that I could do solo. Like I knew that I had things to say, but again, I know I struggle with sometimes like, you know, I'm totally cool not having guests on the show. Like I've had a podcast for 4 years, not solely relying on having a guest or a co-host. I'm cool by myself, right? But again, like I say, it seems like again with the radio background, I know the game, right? It would be genius of me to have a co-host. It would, especially if that co-host is a woman, right? Like I know how the business of this thing goes. But again, right? So sometimes it's like maybe I'm just not maybe I'm just not where I felt like I should be, or I feel like I should be because I'm a solo show, right? So again, I'm tired of coming up short. Like when I hear that part, that when Cole says that on Sideline Story, it makes me think of that. Like it's not always that I'm coming up short, but sometimes I feel like it's just me. It's a me thing. Like maybe just like I'm not enough, right? And as we continue with the latter part of the chorus of Sideline Story, he says, I wish somebody made guidelines on how to get up off the sidelines. And woo, when I heard that, oh my gosh, again, when it comes to like self-sabotage, and shout out again the gimmick infringement pod, man, Tyler and Brad, they let me do a couple articles on there, and once again my most recent one was talking about self-sabotage. Like, it was so heavy on my heart that I was like, I think my GI homies will let me, put drop a little piece on their platform, because I had to get it off. Like, I couldn't shake it. But when I hear this song from Cole, that is exactly how I feel. Like, all my life, I feel like I've always been on the sidelines. Like, it's been very easy for me to go throughout my life watching others succeed and not have a place in the game myself. And like, I think about it in the way of social media, even, right? Like, I think there's a reason why a lot of us follow our favorite athletes or our favorite rappers, whoever it is, because we kind of live vicariously through them, right? I'll be the first to say, I know for me, one of my biggest guilty pleasures and longtime hobbies, especially as video games have gotten a lot more realistic than they once were. When we were young, we didn't have career modes the way we do now. We couldn't put our face in the game and like all these things. So like, I love like I in my free time, I just love playing NBA 2K career mode and living the dream that I didn't get to live in a game. Like, it might sound silly to somebody, but like, that's my thing. That's my thing. Like, and it's the same thing. Like, sometimes I find myself scrolling and I'm looking at all my favorite NBA players and whatnot, and it's like, dang, like, I always pictured that would be my life. Like, you know, the custom court in the gym, or maybe the outdoor court, you know what I mean, with my logo on it, uh like, dope house, everything taken care of, family good, friends good, you know, I can provide for myself, if I got a family, I can provide for my kids, like, all that type of stuff. And then, again, then I get like punched with that reality, like, it didn't happen that way though. And again, that's something where, even with my faith, right, I've been challenged. Like, something I saw the other day, I was reminded of, was like, be okay with it not going your way. Be okay with God, like, be okay with missed expectations. Be okay with it not going to your plan. And when I tell you, that's something that I struggle with heavy as a dreamer, as somebody who maps it out all up here. I joke with people all the time. You can't talk about my forehead. I know I got a big forehead because I'm an overthinker. I'm a big dreamer. Hey man, is God knew that this brother needs some real estate up in here. He needs a little more surface area than the average brother, because my Desmond, he overthinks and he's a big dreamer. I got to give some space for that. But I think about that often, and then it's like, I struggle with that heavy. I'm not gonna lie. As much as I profess the faith, and I try to be a soldier for Christ, it ain't always like that. I've had it hard. I've had it pretty rough in that sense, where, again, like I said, self sabotage, and I'm gonna speak more on it a little bit, but it really eats at me sometimes, especially when I'm doing it unintentionally. That's when it really gets hard. But like, when I think of being on the sidelines and watching other people, it's like, I also feel like it's my calling to encourage others. Like, I really feel like, especially in my family, like, we just have that in us. So I'm like, maybe being on the sidelines is where I'm supposed to be, right? Because on the sidelines is where you hear some of the most encouragement. Maybe that is where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm not supposed to be in the game. So it's like, sometimes I get that thought of, maybe I should take a back seat. Maybe hit to the games ain't what I'm supposed to be doing. It's cool for its time, but maybe that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I'm supposed to find another lane of encouragement. Maybe it's not even in media. Who knows? Like, maybe I'm supposed to be coaching. Like, I don't know. And I hate to, like, I know this is a lot different episode compared to what you're used to, but again, and maybe it's just me at my quarter life crisis. I have no idea. But that's what I think about when I hear that. I wish somebody made guidelines how to get up off the sidelines, because for something I've been struggling for so long, again, now I'm in my 20s, especially my late 20s. My first half of my 20s was pretty cool, but this latter half, oh boy, it's all these. I see what everybody in their 30s means when they say your 20s is like, you have to heal, so when you enter your 30s, then those can be the best years of your life. And now, like, I'm getting all these lessons of like, oh, this is why you do this is why you operate this way, and it's like, whoa. But yeah, man, it's a lot of that. And that in mind too, like, it's been very easy for me to pass opportunities due to feeling not ready or like I'm good enough, right? So again, what I was saying before, the feeling of not being enough, like that hits me right after the excitement. It's that, oh, but no, there's got to be somebody. There's got to be somebody better, right? I could tell you, I'll be, if we be in 100, let's be 100. Somebody could give me an opportunity right now. If somebody came up to me and said, Des, we want to put, I don't know, Stephen Curry's book just came out. We want you to interview him on Hip to the Games. I would be like, nah. Like that, I mean, that's major, but like, no, it can't be me. I don't speak that well. I don't come up, I'm trying to come up with the good questions. I can't interview like Speedy Mormon. I'm not, I don't even have that kind of status or fan base. Like, nah, give it to somebody else. Give it to somebody else. That's how my brain operates. As joyous as it would be for me to interview Stephen Curry and I get to ask him how he, what his top 5 albums are, like it's that side of it too. And even behind the curtain, there was a time a few years ago I had this really dope opportunity, like very potential opportunity of something that I think very at the very least could have been at some point an answered prayer, but it was at a weird time in my life, like literally like where I was at, like I felt like the timing wasn't good, but it was also like, dang, like I didn't have the faith to even say yes. If let's say it was the perfect environment, I don't think I had the faith to say yes. I said no because it was the safest thing for me to do. And that's something that I really, I think about that all the time, just like what I was saying about God, like trusting when things don't go to plan. I still ask myself to this day. That was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I still think about that. Like, was that my chance? And I messed it up. And I have trouble believing that it can come around again or come around in a new way. That was my chance. I struggle with that too. And so, like I said, all of this is kind of in that lane of self sabotage. So, like I said, it gets to a point where sometimes I do it unintentionally, and that's the worst. It's the absolute worst feeling to feel like it's like I carry that fear of walking past answered prayers. Like maybe this person I met can actually help me, but because I'm not reaching out to them, I'm still in the same boat. Like it hasn't clicked in my brain like, yo, Des, you can do this, this, and the third with this person, collab with this person, and y'all both come up. Right? That might be how God sees it, but in my selfishness or in my insecurity and my hopelessness, I don't see it that way. Right? Like I have that fear every day that like I'm just walking past what could be the answers to the prayers that I'm desperately praying for, right? So, woo, yeah, I know that was heavy, but like that's what I think of. Like, I wish somebody made guidelines how to get up off the sidelines because I feel like I've been here so long. If you want me in this game, somebody gonna have to show me how because I'm not just gonna get in this game myself. I can't put my helmet on and my pads and like I'm the type of brother. No, I'm cool with the hoodie. You let me know. Like, if you really want me to put the pads on, you're gonna have to do some. Let me get like a preseason, training camp or something first because it's hard. But yeah, man. Funny enough, like I said, I could have went J. Cole all day because the next one is also J. Cole. But this time it comes out of a Hip to the Games bar on Rags to Riches off the come up, right? It's sad though. I'm tired of being broke as this. I'm seeing other brothers ball and I'm like, oh, for 6. And man, I just graduated. Good old college degree. Shoot, my homies drug dealing see more dollars than me. Comparison is truly the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. Oh my goodness. I know it was coming up earlier as I was talking, but man, I relate to this so heavy. Like, I'm seeing other brothers ball and I'm like, oh, for 6. Like, I always think of Kobe Bryant when on his documentary, he was saying, like, I'm watching Allen Iverson tear it up. I'm watching Ray Allen tear it up. I'm watching dudes get their opportunity in my draft class. Stephon Marbury, like, I'm what Marcus Camby is swatting shots. Like, and I'm on the bench. I feel like that all the time. Like, man, like again, like I said, I'm closer to 30 than I've ever been, right? So it's not even just career stuff. It's podcast, it's career, it's life, right? So it's like I'm looking again. I'm 27. There are podcasters younger than me just finding ways to eat off this thing, getting opportunities, rubbing shoulders with legends or even people around my age, maybe like the same age or maybe a couple years older than me who have been on this grind since we was in high school, and now they're receiving the fruit. Like the NBA was just streaming Agent Zero's Hall of Fame experience, where he streamed his time at the Hall of Fame. And I know he's like 2 years older than me, and I remember seeing his videos all the time. Like, when I didn't pay no mind to it, but like, again, we grew up in that Chris Smooth era, and then when we started actually making content, like, I remember seeing his videos everywhere. So now seeing him, and he at the Hall of Fame, and he shaking hands with Isaiah Thomas and Dominique Wilkins, I'm like, yo, and obviously he's put in a lot more work than me. I give major flowers to him. He's a genuine dude. He does it the right way. I love what he's about, but I see that in other ways, right? Like, again, as long as we got these, you just able to see, for my listeners, I'm holding up my phone, but as long as you got this phone, you're able to see. We have more access to people than we've ever had, so it's easy to play that comparison game. And like, that's all I see sometimes, where I'm like, these dudes are around my age, and like, they got the opportunities with these big companies and whatnot. And it's like, again, like I said, it's like little old me. I feel like I'm 0 for 6. Like, I'm shooting shots at the same spot and I'm missing mine. And that's cool. It's cool to miss. That's how you learn to make. But sometimes, like I said, when you at the grind for a little bit, and that's the thing with me. I feel like the thing I struggle with is getting weary and well doing. Again, something the Bible says not to do, but I'm guilty of that. I'm somebody where I've noticed over the years, I feel like, and again, a lot of it is unintentional, but I've noticed over the years where, like, if I'm not getting checkpoints, it's very easy for me to feel like I need to be doing something else, right? It's very easy for me to pivot and say, maybe this isn't working. I got to try something else, as opposed to sticking with something and really seeing that joint through. And I've noticed that about myself. Like, it's very easy for me to get weary and well doing. Like, I just, I might have my mind set on something, and then the minute it don't really go how I thought, I'm not getting those checkpoints. I'm not getting that positive reinforcement, at least the way I thought it should come. It's very easy for me to be like, I think it's time to throw in the towel. And again, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And I think a lot of that comes out of comparison. I think, like I said, I'm seeing a lot of people in this podcast game, because that's the thing about the podcast game. The reason why it shot up the way it did is because folks realize they could eat off this. Like, if you really about that life and you get the sponsorships and you get good enough to where people are like, you have a valuable fan base, a core fan base, and you bringing value to them in a certain way, you can eat off this. But on the other side of that, I'm seeing, I know people that's been doing this for years, decades, and they still trying. They're still trying. And like I was saying earlier, I don't know if I got it like that. I don't know if I got it like that. And just like Cole says, like, he graduated. He got the college degree you supposed to get, right? But his homies, they hustling. They got a less ethical or moral or respectable way of living. They getting paid. He got the degree. He went through the work, and he broke. That seems anti of what we've been led to believe, right? But like I said, when I hear these bars, that's what J. Cole is going through. Comparison is the thief of joy. Like I said, it's hard scrolling on this phone sometimes, and you're looking for inspiration, or you're like, and I'm a studier, right? So I'm not always, I just get caught in the trap of comparison naturally. Like, I'm a big study guy. So like, I'm going to take what that person did well and put it on my show. I'm going to take what they did for their intro and put it on my show. Oh, that video was dope. I'm going to try that style the next time I make my social media. Like, I'm that kind of guy. So naturally, that can easily turn into, oh, his intro a little better than mine. I got to spruce mine up a little bit. Or dang, like, he did it that way. Like, how are they, like, look at all the views that they got because they did it this way. I tried that same thing and mine not hitting. So is it me? Like, so many things. I feel like I could say, I just have 2 bullet points here, and I feel like I could say so much. But yeah, man, comparison is the thief of joy. And it has robbed me a lot of times. I hate that. It's something that I got to get better at. But again, it gets rough. It gets rough in that lens sometimes. These lyrics be hitting. These lyrics hit a lot harder at 27 than they did at how old was I? I don't know, 12 years old. Like, it's crazy. But the last lyric that I have comes from Eminem. And I know this is very cliche, but it's the truth, right? Like I said, I'm not doctoring this up. I'm not trying to give you the super deep, like, nah, this is just what is hitting for me right now. And Lose Yourself, that last verse always gets me because Eminem touches on the pressure he feels as he chases success, right? And this isn't how he raps it in the song, but and I have it typed differently, but you'll get the idea. He says, "Another day of monotony's gotten me to the point I'm like a snail. I've got to formulate a plot or end up in jail or shot." So it's that pressure, right? The days are getting monotonous, and he feels like there is no progress. He's moving at a snail's pace, and then there's that pressure of like, I gotta get a plot, or else like it's not going to be good for me. And right, I don't feel the pressure as dire as that outcome, right? But I do resonate with that pressure. Again, like I said, I'm getting closer to 30, and sometimes I'm living these days and it feels like my life won't change, right? And I know exactly what Eminem is talking about. That monotony is a wild thing, boy. Monotony is crazy. Where like me and Devon talk about this often. Like when you wake up and you literally can know how your day is gonna go, and then you go to bed and you know exactly how tomorrow's gonna go. Oh, that is tough. And I'm sure you go through that in your own way, right? Like I said, I don't want to get up here and feel like my life's like I'm at the end of the world or something like that, like or I'm by myself even. Like again, I had to throw that hip hop side of it in here too, where it could be relatable and still be hip to the games, right? But yeah, like I feel that pressure and the struggle of a monotonous lifestyle. Like I said, same thing even with the podcast. Like it's hard some days when I can even know, like, okay, Des, let's be honest. How do you think this episode is gonna do? And well, I did this, and is this my best work? I certainly tried to give my best, but do I feel it's my best work? Maybe not this week. Or maybe this week it did feel my best work. It did feel like it was my best work, but the results didn't, it didn't really go how I thought. Like I said, that's the side of podcasting people won't show you. For example, I'm always grateful, right? Like, man, I'm so proud of that Kendrick album review. You know how hard it is to make a 2-part episode and people tap into both parts? Like I've tried that in the past and I've seen people watch the first part and then kind of fall off on the second part. So to get to a point where my part 1 views match my part 2 views, that made my heart like happy because I've been on the other side of that where it feels like, you know, sometimes when you got to be careful doing 2-part episodes because sometimes if the first part was a bit more interesting than the second part, people will fall off. Or if the first part does so well, people are going to see that part, but they may not always go to part 2. Like it's just sometimes it can get like that, but yeah, it comes with a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of it is self-inflicted. I think a lot of it is self-pressure, right? Like I said, comparison and things of that nature. But yeah, but on the point of like the monotonous lifestyle, like I said, sometimes it can be so every day. Like I'm putting my all into this work, and I feel like I'm just getting the same results week after week after week. I'm doing what the experts say. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm being consistent. I'm posting what I'm supposed to be posting. I still got a life outside of this. I still gotta eat. I still gotta sleep. I still gotta, like all these things. I still got a job. Like all these things. And it's like, but I don't want to break the almighty consistency rule that they tell you, you got to post every day. You got to post multiple times a day. It's like, brother, I don't have that. Like that's harder than what it is, what it seems like. So yeah, it, it can be hard. And I think even this too, like what I was saying earlier, like the thing about that gets me is like the idea of being a man, quote unquote. Like, again, let's be real. Like being a man is taking care of your business. Being a man is figuring out how to handle the cards that you were dealt. Right. And what I was saying earlier, that's what's always echoing in my brain. Something's gotta shake. Something's gotta shake. Like I'm putting in too much time. I'm putting in too much care for something not to shake. And so again, that pressure gets to me. I feel like I'm coming up short. Cause again, I feel like I'm being less of a man because I'm struggling. Like I'm trying to make something shake, and even when I'm trying to make something shake, nothing's shaking. Ain't no Jello up in here, So yeah, like I resonate with the pressure that Eminem experiences in "Lose Yourself." Really, that whole song is awesome. Like like that song, it's a reason why that's Eminem's biggest hit, and it's become so cliche, but every time I listen to that song, and like I said, as I get older, the more I resonate with that song. Because boy, that's how I feel. I feel just like B Rabbit, right? Like even when I think of the story of Eminem in real life, right? Like he lost that battle in the final round, and he felt like that was his ticket. And lo and behold, some random kid asked him for his demo. He tossed it in the crowd, like, all right. And that kid ends up being the same A&R that ends up connecting him to like Dr. Dre, right? Like, again, what I was saying earlier, like trusting God even when it doesn't go your way. You know, Eminem wanted to win that thing. He felt like winning would get him his big break, but funny enough, losing gave him his big break. And a lot of times, I look at God and I'm like, how are you doing that for me? I feel like I'm doing everything, and I would hate for somebody to tell me, Des, you're not doing enough. Because sometimes, like, I feel like I'm putting so much into this, and to still feel like I ain't doing enough. Like, I don't know if I got it in me to keep going, you know. And so, like I said, a lot of times when I find myself in this headspace, I'm just like, man, how do I figure this out? I feel like I've tried a lot of things, but nothing is manifesting. Like, how do I do that? You know, and that pressure can get real. And really that's the last lyric that I have. But just, you know, honestly, I don't really know. You know, I hope you got some value from this. Like I said, I appreciate you allowing me to vent all this out, because that's really what it is. But again, it's the connection to hip hop, right? Like the title of this episode is like, these are lyrics that are hitting too hard for me right now. What are some lyrics that are hitting hard for you right now? Like it would be so inauthentic of me to come up in here and talk. Like, honestly, I didn't have it in me to talk about the WNBA playoffs. Like I said, there's been so much music dropping. I haven't tapped into all of it. I could easily get up here and fake and be professional and say, oh yeah, let's talk about Chance album, or let's talk about JID. Let's rate them one. Let's give them 5 mics. You know, let's do the 5 mic rating. Or hey, here's what I think about the WNBA playoffs. But I'm sitting here catching up on highlights and games and stats and stories because I haven't been able to watch the games. Like, at this point, the only thing I really had in me to do was something like this, to just be my authentic self. And that was something God whispered to me, like, yo, Des, give them this. Like, he says that to me often, like when I'm doing some of my podcast episodes. Like, Desmond, you don't know, you're sitting here struggling of what to do for the next episode when it's right in front of your face. Give them this. So that was my goal with this. You know, we've made it to the end of another Hip to the Games episode. I appreciate you allowing me to vent, and I think give you a different side of hip hop compared to the optimism I usually like to provide on here. Like I say, I know this is a bit different from me because I try to always be the positive dude. I always try to be the encourager. Like, anytime a rapper's in my DMs, anytime my homies are I'm texting with them, like, I always say, like, keep going, keep your head up, something like to that effect, because I know how it is. But it just felt fake of me to like act like everything was peachy and fine and put a bow on it, right? Like, it feels weird doing this because, like I said, usually I'm Desmond Powell, host of Hip to the Games. Catch me every other Friday, you know. But I just don't feel like that, man. I don't feel like that. Like I said, it took every bit of me to like not just take some weeks off and play NBA 2K. Like, that's literally, I feel like sometimes all I got the energy for. Like, and even with this episode, right? There's so many songs and artists that I wanted to pull from. I wanted to pull from Wale, but that stuff just wasn't hitting at this time in my life. And I didn't want this to be a super long episode. I still don't know how long this episode is. We'll see. But I hope that if anything, you found yourself in a similar situation, like I said, and you can resonate. Maybe we can encourage each other with song lyrics. You know, these were just my thoughts. But it's time to hear from you. Like I said, I always leave that door open. You can tweet the show at Hip to the Games or tag me directly on Twitter or IG at Desmond Powell _. You know, that door is always there. To share any lyrics that are hitting a little too close to home for you nowadays. Again, I would love to try my best to encourage you as well. You know, thankfully, God often uses hip hop for fans like you and I to speak to what we're feeling and help us get through these harder days. You know, life ain't always peachy, but somehow, some way, we keep going. I might have said everything I wanted to say. I might not have. There are probably some, I'm going to edit this and I'm going to be like, I should have said this, should have said that. But I don't know, man. With all that said, just thank you. Thank you for listening for another episode of Hip to the Games. Even if it is something like this, all for the love of the best combo there is. You know, hopefully God and hip hop can pick us up And here's a huge shout out to you for being hip to the games, being on this journey with me, even for the moments like this. It means more than you know. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.